Imagine one morning, you wake up in a strange room, cold white light casting across the ceiling, and your mind is blank. You don't know who you are. Every face around you suddenly feels unfamiliar. The memories you thought were real now crack like a mirror, revealing beneath the facade of a programmed world. If every memory in your head was just a product of a dream-selling company, would you dare face the truth that your entire life might never have existed? That's The Abyss. Total Recall 1990 throws its viewers into a nightmare blurring dream and reality where humans are torn between their true self and artificial memories. The film begins like a cosmic travel dream, but grows into a frenzied neurological storm where reality bends to the point that no one knows if they're awake or dreaming. Released in June 1990, Total Recall wasn't just an action blockbuster that elevated Arnold Schwarzenegger to legendary status. It was also proof of Hollywood's madness in that era, a project stalled for over a decade, passed through 7 directors, deemed unfilmable, and nearly buried before being reborn as a masterpiece. But behind its glossy exterior was a journey drenched in sweat, blood and illness, where hundreds of people paid a real price to create a perfect illusion. In the stifling heat of Mexico City, over 500 crew members fell ill one by one. A field hospital sprang up on the set, and director Paul Verhoeven had an ambulance on standby around the clock. When the first cut was completed, the film was slapped with an X rating for violence beyond limits. Too real, too brutal, nearly banned by Hollywood. And that was just the beginning. Let's dive into the 20 strangest facts about Total Recall, where the boundary between reality and illusion melts, where Hollywood touched the limits of imagination and nearly lost its sanity to create a masterpiece that still sends shivers after more than 3 decades. 20. An origin so wild it made the film. Reasonable. Before becoming a blockbuster with chases and roaring gunfire, Total Recall began as a short story under 20 pages by Philip K. Dick. We can remember it for you wholesale. In the middle of a rainy night, a man named Douglas Quayle sat in a small room, staring at the red sky of Mars he had never set foot on. Living a dull life as a clerk, he had only one dream: to leave Earth just once. Then one day, Quayle walked into Recall, a company that sells dreams by implanting fake memories. But when the needle touched his skin, the memory scanner flashed strange signals. The technicians froze. His mind already held memories of Mars. Not fake ones, but real. He had been a secret agent, carried out a classified mission, and had his past erased. The dream became reality, but a reality he never wanted to recall. In Philip K. Dick's original draft, the story went even further. Quayle had met tiny extraterrestrial beings who once planned to destroy Earth but changed their minds because he was a good person. It was a detail both whimsical and terrifying, one that director David Cronenberg initially wanted to keep in the first script. But when Paul Verhoeven took over, he slashed it all. He understood that the film didn't need monsters or aliens. The scariest thing was always humans, when they no longer knew who they were. And with that cold decision, Total Recall stepped out of a fantastical world to become a nightmare of memory, identity and truth, where the greatest enemy isn't in the universe, but within each person. 19. 2 grotesque creatures that shook the screen and didn't belong to Verhoeven. Amid the red haze of Mars, when a man removed his shirt, his body convulsed, and a wrinkled face emerged from his stomach. That was the moment that stunned audiences worldwide. The birth of Kuato wasn't just Total Recall's most gruesome highlight, but an iconic moment of 1990s cinema. Yet few know that image wasn't Paul Verhoeven's. The idea of a mutant growing from a stomach, along with the shocking 3-breasted woman, was a legacy of David Cronenberg, who nurtured the project before leaving. In his original script, Mars wasn't just a colony, but a biological prison, where human bodies reacted to distorted memories. Kuato symbolized the buried identity in the subconscious, something struggling to resurface. When Verhoeven took over, he read that description and paused for a long time. He told the crew, "This is a sacred kind of horror. I'll keep it as is." And so began weeks of intense work. Actor Marshall Bell wore a heavy animatronic device, controlled by 15 technicians syncing every finger and breath of Kuato. Light, smoke, and the groans of mechanical motors blended with the actor's laboured breathing, creating a scene both terrifying and surreal. When the scene was complete, Verhoeven smiled. Cronenberg may have left, but his mark remained, in the form of Kuato and the three-breasted woman, two bizarre yet deeply human icons. What do you think of this combination? Don't hesitate to share in the comments. 18. The set turned into a red hell as the entire crew collapsed in Mexico City. If on screen, Mars in Total Recall was a deadly red planet, in real life the film set in Mexico City was no less a hell on Earth. In July 1989, during the scorching dry season, over 500 crew members crowded into stifling concrete tunnels, where camera smoke, industrial lights, and chemical odours blended into a thick, suffocating air. But no one expected the real nightmare still lay ahead. One morning, after a few lunches at the local canteen, a mass poisoning outbreak erupted. The set was like a biological bomb had gone off. People collapsed on the floor, vomited in the makeup rooms, some feverish to the point of delirium right before a scene. Doctors set up a makeshift emergency ward on the set, and every hallway was packed with stretchers. No one was allowed to leave, as the shooting schedule was threatened by the minute. Yet, amid that chaos, two people miraculously survived. The first, naturally, was Arnold Schwarzenegger, the muscular hero who brought his own chef from the US just to avoid strange food. The second was screenwriter Ronald Schwarzenegger, who injected himself with vitamin B12 every morning to keep creative energy. They became the immortal duo of the crew, calmly working amid hundreds of colleagues struggling with vomit buckets and antibiotics. Director Paul Verhoeven was so exhausted that he had an ambulance on standby 24/7 by the set. He even fainted mid-scene once, received an IV drip on set and continued filming as if nothing happened. Mexico's polluted air made every breath burn like a knife, but the crew pressed on, shot by shot, scene by scene. Because stopping meant this $60 million project would collapse. And so they worked, amid the smell of disinfectant, sweat, and the groans of people vomiting in the hallways. 45 sets, 8 sound stages, hundreds of shooting days, all completed in conditions that would have made any other crew flee long ago. Watching this, do you admire the crew's determination? Isn't it fitting that this film succeeded? The role almost fell to names you wouldn't believe. Before Arnold Schwarzenegger's name was etched into history with Total Recall, the role of Douglas Quaid nearly bore a completely different face. In the 1980s, the project was in David Cronenberg's hands. He didn't want a hero, but an ordinary man thrown into his own nightmare. Thus, the casting list sounded like a dream of a different kind. Richard Dreyfuss, the shy teacher from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Jeff Bridges, the dreamy wanderer of Starman, and Patrick Swayze, the sizzling star who had just swept the world with Dirty Dancing. Patrick Swayze even signed a preliminary contract, tried on costumes, and the first backdrops were built on De Laurentiis' set. Then, overnight, the studio went bankrupt. The project fell apart. The set was dismantled. Total Recall faded into oblivion like an unformed dream. But the film's fate lay with someone else. After Predator and the Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger read the abandoned script, saw its immense potential, and personally convinced Kuato to revive the project, with one condition: he would star. When Arnold arrived, everything changed instantly. Douglas Quaid was no longer a small-time clerk, but a muscular worker. A hero outwardly tough but inwardly full of doubt. Every shot, every line revolved around the question, could such a hero be just a product of fake memories? From that moment, Arnold didn't just play the role. He redefined the image of a man controlled by his own memory. What if Arnold hadn't taken the lead and someone else did? Share your thoughts in the comments below. 16. When David Cronenberg turned a memory dream into Philip K. Dick's terrifying obsession. Before Paul Verhoeven took the helm, Total Recall belonged to David Cronenberg, the master of flesh-driven nightmares. For over a year, he rewrote the entire script, stripping away guns and explosions, keeping only Philip K. Dick's core. The paranoia of memory, identity, and the line between real and fake. His version had no muscular hero, no fierce battles, just an ordinary man losing his grip on himself. Each memory was a broken mirror, reflecting distorted images of man and machine. Cronenberg crafted a damp, dark Mars where human bodies decayed, and memories became strange creatures crawling from others' stomachs. In his version, Kuato and the three-breasted woman weren't shock tactics, but symbols of bodies rebelling against manipulated minds. The producers panicked. They wanted an Indiana Jones on Mars, something to sell tickets to the masses. Cronenberg was furious. "I made Philip K. Dick's film. What more do you want?" he said, then walked away. Years later, when Verhoeven took over, he added what Hollywood craved: guns, blood, and speed. The philosophical nightmare became a violent action feast. But in every frame, Cronenberg's legacy lingered, twisted, haunting, and deeply human. It was the dark soul that no matter how much light Verhoeven poured on, audiences still saw, a diseased dream they could never forget. 15. The cursed project languished for 13 years before Arnold appeared. Some films are born under studio lights, others must crawl through hell to see the light. Total Recall was the latter. In 1976, Ronald Shusett and Dan O'Bannon, the screenwriters behind Alien, stumbled upon Philip K. Dick's We Can Remember It For You wholesale. They believed it held a seed that could change sci-fi cinema forever. They dove in, eagerly pitching the script across Hollywood. But every door closed. Too complex, too philosophical, unfilmable. That was the response they heard repeatedly. The script passed hands like a cursed object. Bruce Beresford, Richard Rush, then David Cronenberg, all gave up. Producer Dino De Laurentiis held the project for years, only for it to collapse just before shooting. People joked that Total Recall was a ghost film, a jinxed thing that doomed anyone who tried to make it. 13 years passed in silence until Arnold Schwarzenegger appeared. Fresh off Predator, he was at his peak and could make any studio listen. Arnold found the buried script, read it in one night, and decided it had to be made. He convinced Kuato to buy the rights, brought Paul Verhoeven to the director's chair, and personally restarted the entire project. From the ashes of a film thought dead, Arnold breathed new life into it. Total Recall was born not from luck, but from the will of a man who never gave up, turning a 13-year curse into a blazing Martian dream. 14. When Hollywood tried to revive what couldn't be revived. In 1990, Total Recall premiered and exploded like a blast on Mars. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Paul Verhoeven, and their real blood, real sweat filmmaking created a masterpiece both wild and profound. The film grossed over $260 million, won an Oscar for special effects, and became the last icon of the pre-CGI era. Then, 22 years later, Hollywood tried again. They wanted to awaken the beast, remaking Total Recall for a new generation. This time, Colin Farrell, Kate Beckinsale, and Jessica Biel replaced the old cast. No Mars, no mutants, no red haze or grit, just cold steel towers and glossy CGI chases. The film was sleek, beautiful, and soulless. When the premiere ended, the theatre sat in silence. The box office was modest, reviews were cold, and the ultimate irony was that the remake only made people cherish the original more. Like trying to recreate a finished nightmare, the more they tried, the more they realised Total Recall 1990 was inimitable, a dream that could only exist once in history. Have you seen the new version of this film, and what did you think of it? Share your thoughts in the comments. 13. The trailer that nearly sank the entire project. In May 1990, with Total Recall weeks from release, MGM dropped the first trailer. But instead of gunfire, red haze and fiery Mars, the screen showed only Arnold's pale face floating in darkness. A few flat lines, no climax, no pulse. When the theatre lights came up, the audience was silent. People stood up quietly. PR executives exchanged looks, faces ashen. A multi-million-dollar marketing campaign was crumbling before their eyes. Arnold was invited to a private trailer screening. He said nothing for half a minute, then slammed his hand on the table. "This isn't my Total Recall." The words hit like lightning. That night, he called the company behind The Empire Strikes Back and the Terminator trailers. His order was brief. "Start over. I want fire, bullets, screams, and I want Mars." A week later, the new version was born. The screen erupted in red haze, clashing metal, faces bulging in thin air, rapid cuts, blood, fire, screams, light, all blended into a storm. When the trailer dropped, American media exploded. In 7 days, Total Recall topped search charts, and theatres received thousands of pre-booking calls. At the press conference, a PR executive joked, but everyone knew it was true. Arnold is the first actor in Hollywood history to save his own film with a trailer. From that moment, he wasn't just an action star, but a living marketing storm, a hero in both film and reality. 12. The underestimated film sparked a box office earthquake. On June 1st, 1990, Total Recall hit theatres. Critics weren't convinced. They called it a bloody game disguised as philosophy, a mashup of Blade Runner and a B-movie action flick. To them, Paul Verhoeven was just a violence-obsessed director, and Arnold Schwarzenegger only knew fists and guns. No one thought these two could create anything profound beyond a feast of corpses. But 3 days later, Hollywood fell silent. The film grossed $25 million in its opening weekend, overtaking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to claim the top spot. Across America, theatres were packed, tickets sold out. Audiences crowded to buy tickets as if they wanted to escape reality and step into Quaid's illusion. That entire summer, Total Recall became a red storm sweeping the globe, earning over $260 million, 4 times its production cost. Verhoeven and Arnold did the unthinkable. They turned a convoluted philosophical story about memory and identity into a breathless blockbuster, both brutal and intelligent. Total Recall didn't just win money, it shattered the prejudice that action films were only about explosions and killing. From being underestimated, the film became a milestone, paving a new path for sci-fi cinema, where mind and muscle coexisted in a bloody, metallic dream. 11. Arnold hit a cast in the middle of bloody action scenes. On screen, Douglas Quaid charged through smoke-filled corridors, smashed glass doors, and fired guns amid red dust. In reality, Arnold Schwarzenegger fought too, this time against his own body. During a hand-to-hand fight rehearsal at the Mars Hilton Hotel, a slip broke his right hand's finger. No one dared stop. The shooting schedule was tight, costing hundreds of thousands daily. Arnold gritted his teeth, put on a brace, and stepped onto the set as if uninjured. Paul Verhoeven and cinematographer Jost Vacano had to maneuver every angle, hiding the braced hand in lighting, gestures, and frames. But the challenge didn't end. In the scene where Quaid smashes a train's glass door, the explosives rigged in the frame failed to detonate. Arnold smashed it for real. A crack sounded, glass cut deep into his hand, blood poured out, but but he kept acting. When the camera stopped, Verhoeven exclaimed, "We just filmed the realest action scene of my life." On screen, Quaid was a fearless man. In reality, Arnold was too. That era had no CGI, no stand-in effects. Every wound was real, and that's what made him an icon. A hero, not just written but carved in blood on the set. 10. The 9-kilogram head that terrified the crew. Amid explosions and flying bullets, one seemingly small moment chilled the entire crew. The scene where Quaid pulls a tracking device from his nose. Engineer Rob Bottin, who terrified audiences with The Thing, decided to do something unprecedented. He built an Arnold head model, complete with eyes, jaw, lips, skin, veins, that moved like the real thing. Inside was a maze of cables, air tubes, and electronic motors linked to 3 separate controllers. During the test run, the model shook, eyes bulged, mouth opened, emitting a groaning sound. The set backed away. The 9-kilogram head required 3 people to operate simultaneously. One for the eyes, one for the mouth, another for breathing and neck muscles. When a laser hit the metal chip, reflecting through the nostril, the room felt like an alien surgery. The scene ended to applause. No one believed it was a model. They joked that if Arnold stood beside his replica, audiences wouldn't know who was real. 9. A broken CGI scene saved by bare hands of artists. In the early 1990s, when CGI was a luxury, Total Recall was expected to set a new standard. The X-ray scan scene at the checkpoint, where viewers saw through human bodies, was hyped as an unprecedented tech showcase. But on editing day, the $100,000 software crashed. Files corrupted, data lost, drives burned out. The project teetered on the edge. No one wanted to believe a Martian dream could be defeated by a few lines of code. In desperation, Eric Brevig's effects team did the unthinkable. They went manual. Artists spread out paper, redrawing each frame by hand. 24 frames for 1 second of motion. Every bone, knee joint and step was mimicked from the actors' real movements. One artist recalled, "We drew until our hands shook, eyes burned, but no one stopped." When the film hit theatres, audiences gaped at the modern CGI scene, unaware it was hand-drawn animation. It was alive, breathing, soulful, and that craftsmanship created a miracle no computer could achieve back then. 8. The 3-breasted woman born from a Star Trek rejection. In Mars's red light district, a woman stepped out of the haze, hair loose, red lights on her skin. Then her shirt opened, revealing 3 breasts. Just a few seconds, but that image burned into a generation's memory. Its origin began with a rejection. Years earlier, a designer pitched the 3-breast concept for Deanna Troi in Star Trek: The Next Generation. The studio dismissed it as beyond TV limits. When Paul Verhoeven heard the story, he burst out laughing. "If they don't dare, I will." The makeup team was tasked with crafting a silicone breast prosthetic with mechanics to move with actress Lycia Naff's breathing. The first version had 4 breasts, but when tested, the crew laughed, saying it looked like an alien dairy cow. Verhoeven settled on 3, bizarre yet seductive. The scene lasted mere dozens of frames but became a 1990s cinema icon. Amid guns, red haze and blood, people still remembered her. A small, strange yet hauntingly sensual detail. 7. When excessive gore forced Total Recall to dissect itself. The first cut of Total Recall stunned the US censorship board. Blood sprayed on screen, organs splattered, and the bulging eye scene in a vacuum lasted so long audiences turned away. The film was slapped with an X rating, meaning no commercial release. Paul Verhoeven protested. He argued violence wasn't for shock, but for truth. But to save his creation, he had to cut it. In the editing room, he and the editor spent weeks trimming 6 frames per gunshot, dimming blood's light, shortening the bulging eye scene from 4 seconds to 2. After the 10th revision, the board approved an R rating. When the True Blood version was released on home video, fans treated it like a treasure. They said that was the real Total Recall, raw, unfiltered, honest. Verhoeven once said, "If violence doesn't make viewers uncomfortable, it has no meaning." Perhaps that's why Total Recall endures, a nightmare both feared and craved. 6. Mutant Kuato lived through 15 people at once. Among Total Recall's countless images, nothing was as terrifying and haunting as Kuato, the mutant growing from a man's stomach. But behind that scene was a living machine. 15 people hid around the set, each controlling a body part. One for the eyes, one for the mouth, another pulling strings for twitching fingers, the rest monitoring each shuddering breath. Marshall Bell, playing George, Kuato's host, wore a mechanical device over 30 kilograms. He sat for hours in makeup, sweating, unable to move. When "action" rang out, Kuato came alive. Eyes opened, lips trembled, a voice echoed from the chest. The set held its breath. When the scene wrapped, everyone stood and clapped. Many later audiences believed Marshall Bell was truly deformed. They didn't know Kuato was the pinnacle of practical effects, an alien creature raised by mechanics, human hands, and imagination. In that moment, cinema touched its limit, where the fake became too real and the real became legend. 5. An echo from Predator crept into Mars. In Total Recall's fierce climax, as Quaid touched the ancient reactor and the atmosphere flooded Mars, amid wind and mechanical sounds, a small beep rang out, cold, rhythmic, strangely familiar. Keen audiences recognized it wasn't random. It was the targeting sound of the creature in Predator, the film that made Arnold Schwarzenegger an action icon of the 80s. The sound design team later admitted they slipped it in as a tribute. One beep, one moment, but enough to connect two worlds. An Arnold lost in a jungle, and an Arnold lost on Mars. Two spaces, two nightmares, one soul. A man facing something beyond his comprehension. In that moment, as the reactor's light exploded, the beep echoed like a call from the past, a survivor's greeting to himself, now challenging the universe. 4. The two steering wheel taxi that panicked the stunt team. The self-driving taxis on Mars were essential to Total Recall's futuristic world. Sleek, eccentric, dangerous. In reality, they were built from old Volkswagen frames, but at Verhoeven's request, the design team added two independent steering wheels for a futuristic feel. That detail turned them into true nightmare machines. Hollywood's seasoned stunt drivers, who had handled supercars in dozens of action films, were stumped. The reverse steering system made the taxis veer opposite to intent. A slight misstep could flip the entire frame. In the first few days of shooting, 3 prototype taxis were destroyed. Mel Johnson Jr., who played driver Benny, arrived early on set. Instead of resting, he spent hours daily practicing the bizarre vehicle until he mastered it. When real shooting began, Verhoeven realized Johnson was the only one who could drive it. Every chase, every sharp turn was performed by him, no stunt doubles. In a film where everything was fake, Johnson was a rare, real thing. A man holding the crew's lives through seemingly impossible turns. Do you think Johnson was a true hero? Share your thoughts in the comments. 3. Real soldiers stormed the film. In many sci-fi films, guards are mere background, but in Total Recall, every step, gun, and glance carried the weight of battlefield experience. Because they weren't actors, they were real soldiers. The crew didn't hire extras, but recruited active duty Marines and naval officers from a nearby Mexico City base. They brought their training habits, weapon handling, marching stances, and iron discipline no actor could fake. When Verhoeven yelled action, they didn't act, they fought. No one laughed, no one spoke an extra word. A technician recalled, It felt like we were in a real barracks. Thanks to them, the Mars base wasn't just a set, but a living outpost. Every bullet, every fall, carried the breath of real war. That presence made the film's violence believable, chilling audiences even though they knew they were in a theatre. 2. A cancelled score became a frenzied masterpiece. Jerry Goldsmith, the composer behind haunting scores for Alien and Star Trek, was tasked with scoring Total Recall. But the journey quickly became a nightmare. To cut costs, the studio hired a Munich orchestra. When the first session ended, Goldsmith sat in silence. The music was stiff, soulless, lacking the film's chaotic pulse. He demanded a full cancellation. Then he flew to London, secured extra funding, and brought in the National Philharmonic Orchestra. In a small studio, he stood among hundreds of musicians, conducting like a man possessed. Brass roared, drums pounded, strings screeched like metal on skin. Goldsmith mixed electronic sounds with real instruments, creating a score like a planet's dying convulsion. When the score was done, everyone stood and clapped. Total Recall wasn't just a film, it became a frenzied symphony. Critics called it an orchestral rebellion, and it remains one of the most intense film scores ever written. 1. When every poster lied, only Arnold's face reigned. Before audiences heard the first gunshot, they were mesmerized by Arnold Schwarzenegger's gaze. The US poster for Total Recall featured only his face bathed in cold blue light, with the tagline, "They stole his mind. Now he wants it back." A still image but radiating menace, as if the man was about to tear through reality and step out of the poster. In Thailand, the poster turned him into a hero standing amid blazing red light. In Italy, Arnold held a laser gun, surrounded by a burning Mars. Each country had its style, each poster a unique lie about the film. But they shared one thing. Arnold's face dominated the frame, as if this world existed only to reflect his eyes. And when the film hit theatres, that became true. Audiences didn't remember the director or Philip K. Dick. They remembered the face of a man who lost his memory, yet fought to reclaim himself. That face didn't just rule the posters, it ruled an era's memory. Total Recall is a testament to the golden age of action cinema, when every drop of sweat, wound and effect was real. The film didn't just dazzle with intensity, but chilled with its philosophical depth about memory and identity. From Mars's blazing red frames to Jerry Goldsmith's relentless score, everything burned like a wild, beautiful dream. Over 3 decades later, Total Recall stands as an inimitable legend. If you love bold, fiery, cinematic stories like this, don't forget to hit like to support the channel, and subscribe to catch more journeys exploring the backstories of Hollywood's wild masterpieces.